Romans 12:2, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. I have to daily renew my mind. Every morning I have to renew my mind and align myself.
Hello everybody and welcome to Crucifying Addiction. I'm your co-host Trent, and this is part 2 of Landon's interview. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, go ahead and go do that first. Enjoy.
My family had paid this guy John on Chondo. He's an interventionist, basically. They had paid him to reach out to me because I wasn't trying to talk to my parents, family, or nobody. I wasn't trying to hear. They kept telling me, hey, you got to do something, right? But the rebellion had set in so much from my past and the childhood and junior high and high school that you can't tell me nothing. I ain't listening to y'all. And thank God my mom picked up on that, right? And so she found a vessel to reach me. And when I got out of jail and turned my phone on, his messages were in my inbox.
I've never heard of an interventionist in real life. Like I haven't heard a real life experience of a guy that's paid to.
Yeah, I always thought that was in movies.
Yeah. I've heard stuff like that in shows and stuff like that, but
it really happened.
You really experienced it.
Yeah, it really happened.
Wow. So how was that?
Well, at first I'm like, who the F is texting my phone, right? Who is John on Chondo, And at first, I'm on meth and stuff. I'm like, this guy's a Fed for sure. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's got to be a cop or something. And he just popped up in my inbox one day and, he starts talking to me, hey, do you want some help, man? I heard you're struggling. Maybe don't know what to do, and he glazed it up for me and said, hey, I've got this spot in Houston. If you want to come down, he's like, I'll come. You don't have to deal with your parents. I'll buy you a plane ticket. I'll get on the plane with you. I'll fly you down to Houston for treatment. And at this time, I don't know what treatment is. I don't know what a 12-step program is. I don't know anything about recovery. But I say yes. Like, let's do it. The stubbornness and pride had ran out at this point. And I was ready to swallow that and at least attempt to do something different,
I just want to say that I think that's just something worthy of praise that you finally gave in, that you finally realized that you needed help. That really hits hard for me. I think maybe for Trent too, and because it's really, really difficult to just kind of give in, especially someone that you don't know. This guy literally just popped up in your inbox and asked if you needed help. I think that's really powerful, man.
It was very powerful. And at the time, there was nothing spiritual about it, right? But looking back on it, it's like that's who God used to get it to me, I probably owe him a phone call. I'm still thankful for that because that's whenever I got my first dose of recovery, my first dose of a 12-step program, my first dose of a personal relationship with a God that I understood. So I go do, I think it was 35 days residential treatment in Houston at a place called Into Action. Come out of there with 35 days clean. Lots of anxiety, lots of fear regarding what's going to happen with my legal situation. For one of the first phone calls I make when I get out to my lawyer, hey, what's the word? He said, I need you to get all your paperwork together. Recommendation letters, any letters from your counselors there, your IOP counselors. So I do that, and I send them to my lawyer. I don't know, a couple weeks pass. I'm doing intensive outpatient after residential treatment, which is kind of the transition. You usually go from residential treatment to an intensive outpatient, which is just like you go up there. You go to outpatient from, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. or something. Anyway, I'm doing that part of the program. I get a call from the lawyer, and he said, hey, they are completely dropping the gun charge because it was not in the vehicle. It was under the hood of the vehicle. They said they're dropping my 4 to 200 down to 1 to 4 grams. They're dropping my 1 to 4 grams down to less than a gram, and they're giving me time served on everything. And my freaking heart fell out of my chest, dude. I said, there is no way. And he said, yes, the only stipulation is you cannot come back to Lubbock County. Where do I sign? So
God gave you a clean slate,
and he even told you where to not go.
Yeah. God literally gave the directions, and so that was a real turning point in the spiritual walk. There was no other explanation than God at that point.
Really, at that time, you're just saying that you could not deny it.
But could not deny it. No, there was no self involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
All I did was agree to go to treatment. I was not in court. This was all handled with me elsewhere. The only thing I did was leave, and God did the rest.
Right.
It was extremely powerful, dude. It gives me chills thinking about it still to this day. Granted, those felonies are convictions now, but I didn't have to do any jail time. I didn't have to do any prison time. So I went from worrying about 2 to 10 to a clean slate, which is remarkable. Mm-hmm. Thank God for my lawyer, though, too. I think he had a large part to do with that. I think that he essentially told him, look, he's a drug addict, not a criminal. He was a family friend. He cared about me. I wasn't just money to him, So I think that played a part in it as well. So
you have this clean slate that you're giving credit to God for because you didn't have any influence in it. What did you do with that?
Dude, I ran with it, man. I really dove into recovery at this point. I really dove into that personal relationship. I met a lot of good men in sobriety. I got involved.
In Houston?
In Houston, yep. I got a good home group. I was present. I got up to step 9, made all my amends, and did some 10 and 11, which is daily maintenance, some spiritual maintenance, but it wasn't every day. And I never got into any service work there. I never got into, sitting across the table with another addict or alcoholic and telling them what worked for me,
Yeah.
Spread the message.
This language might be a little new to some listeners, and even Bailey maybe, but we did a recording that hasn't been released yet at this point.
Yeah.
Back to the scripture. You're harvested to be a worker. Mm-hmm. And that's step 12. That is you were harvested, now go out and harvest. So you didn't harvest. You didn't start harvesting others.
No, I didn't even plant any seeds to be harvested. Mm-hmm. I took, some self back in here again, right? I got some recovery. I started feeling better. I got some things back, some external things back, the job, the girl, the house. I got 18 months clean at that point. I was talking to a girl from Lubbock who was also in recovery. We stayed clean together for 6 months-ish. Her birthday rolled around. At this time, she had become my higher power, dude. She had become the only thing that mattered. Recovery took a back seat. God took a back seat. God was not first in that relationship. Stopped going to meetings. Stopped contacting my sponsor. Just stopped recovery, period. I was comfortable. I was complacent would be the better word for it. Overly comfortable. And felt as though I didn't need to go to meetings anymore. Didn't need to talk to my sponsor. Didn't need to talk to God anymore. And so, and her program fell off as well. Her recovery program, her 12-step program fell off as well. And, we were all consumed by each other. So her birthday rolls around, after 18 months of sobriety, and she wants to go have a margarita on her birthday. And so that's what we did. After 18 months of sobriety, there I was again. And it started off with that justification, that rationalization of, hey, I can just have one drink. We can just go have a good time on her birthday weekend, and then be okay.
Was it just one drink that day?
It was 2. So yeah, there was I got a buzz. Weekend after that, of course, we went back. Had more margaritas that time. Mm. We got drunk that night. 3 margaritas. I happened to know a guy that had already relapsed, and he had some cocaine. So we did some cocaine, and I go back to work that week, sober that week. Same thing. Next weekend rolls around, and she wants to get some weed. And
so y'all are just trying to keep it on the weekends.
Correct. Yeah, we're trying to moderate. Mm. Yeah. Which is, for a drug addict like myself, there is no moderation. I had myself fooled at that point, that I could just do it on the weekends and lightly, compared to what I used to do, this ain't nothing, the rationalization again. And so the next week rolls around, and she wants to get some weed. I want to drink and do cocaine again. We both do what we want to do there. Long story short, that all snowballs. I end up wanting to do my drug of choice, which is opiates, and I hit the ground running, man. I find a fentanyl dealer in Houston, and I dive right in, back to needles and everything. Hide it from her for a while.
She's no longer your higher power.
She's no longer, nope, drugs are the higher power again.
Okay, so I already asked you what your state of mind was earlier in the story. Where would it be now?
Yeah, the state of mind was just, I don't care. There was no care. I had already stepped out of recovery and stepped back into addiction. She stays smoking weed. I graduate to needles and fentanyl, and I'm hiding that from her. She ends up finding out shortly thereafter, and she wants to be a part of it. She wants to be a part of what I'm doing. I agreed. Gave her some opiates for the first time and showed her how to use a needle. She full on dove into it, got her own dope, bought her own needles. From her birthday to the time it stopped was probably about a year. I remember her getting really sick, man. I remember her, something wasn't right, and her behavior changed. She wasn't all there. Like something was going on in her brain, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And we just kept using through it. I figured it was just something, I don't know, internally or emotionally going on with her. She had bipolar. And so I figured it had something to do with that. Come to find out, she got sicker and sicker. And there was a couple days there where she called into work, and which was not normal. She would always go to work, and she also would not get out of bed. And so I would go check on her, and she wasn't even getting out of bed to use the fentanyl, which is strange because, we wake up in the middle of the night sick from not using fentanyl, so we need more. And she was just sleeping through her sickness. And so I knew something was up, and one night she goes to use the bathroom, and she sits down on the toilet, but the toilet seat's closed, and she pees everywhere. And I go in there because I hear something, water, liquid hitting the ground. And I go in there and I'm like, what, Kimber, what are you doing? What's going on? She said, I'm just using the bathroom. I said, babe, the toilet seat's down. You're peeing all over the floor. And at that point is when I knew something was seriously wrong, and I called the ambulance. And the ambulance came, and once she got up off of that toilet, dude, her body she got rigid. Almost like rigor mortis, but like pre-death. I don't know. She just got really rigid, like her body was in shock or something, and I couldn't get her down the stairs, and so the ambulance brought the stretcher up and put her on it, and I said, okay, I'll meet you at the hospital. She's in the back of the ambulance. I followed the ambulance up there. This is during COVID, so I can't go in to the hospital. So they're literally relaying messages to me from inside. There'll be a nurse that comes out and tells me at the sliding doors at the front of the hospital, hey, this is what's going on. So it turns out that she's got an embolism in her brain. Her brain's bleeding.
Dang.
Yeah, and at that point, I don't know what to do. So I contact her mom. Let her know, hey, Kimber's in the hospital with an embolism. She freaks out. They want to airlift her to Clear Lake, which is a better hospital than the one she's at. But the helicopter was, I guess, busy, or they couldn't get it there in time. So they put her in an ambulance and hauled ass to League City. We went from Texas City to League City. The Clear Lake Hospital's there. And they get her in there and immediately put her in ICU. And again, we're not allowed to go up there into the room with her. Her mom flies down from Lubbock. Asked me, what's going on, I said, well, we've been using, we've both been using needles. We've both been using fentanyl. And it turns out Kimber had been lying to her about everything, our relationship, drug use, why she hadn't been in contact, work, all of it. And so her mom, to this day, still blames me for everything. So she's in ICU for about a week and a half. Things start to improve a little bit, and then they get worse, man. She starts turning blue. Her extremity, her fingers and her toes start turning blue, and the tips of her ears even start turning blue. And at this point, I'm like, this isn't good. You know, they start talking about amputation, and I'm like, oh God. And she's a hairdresser. You know, she uses her hands and her fingers for everything. So at this point, it's like, I don't know. At some point in there, the prayer became, you know, take her so she doesn't have to come back to this pain. I don't know that she would have made it out of that. And so, so long story short, her organs fail. The diagnosis was sepsis from dirty needles, blood poisoning, essentially. And it ends up taking her, man. She died December 17th, 2 years ago. And it's when it got dark, man. It's when it got suicidal. It's when it got heavy, man. I dove into use after that more. My mom came down. They had a memorial service for Kimber in Lubbock, because that's where her family was from. So I flew to Lubbock, we drove to Lubbock. We drove from Houston to Lubbock. Before we left, I had to go get 10 grams of fentanyl in order to make it through that trip. Not sick. And so that's what my mom allowed that. I rode with 10 grams of fentanyl from Houston to Lubbock with my mom. And so...
isn't that enough to kill like 10 elephants?
Yes. Yeah, it was a lot of dope, dude. Yeah. And I was doing some large quantities each shot, you know. I will say this, after I found out that it was sepsis from dirty needles, I threw all my needles out and just snorted it from that point on. And so we go to her memorial service. I have to go that high. Otherwise, I'm sick and won't be able to make it. I could make it, but I'll be throwing up all over everybody. I'll be sick, you know. So I used before that memorial event as well. My mom then takes me to Artesia, New Mexico, which is where she had her house, and I still have a large amount of dope. And at this point, I know I've got to do something again. You know, there's no reason I should be going to a woman that I deeply cared about. There's no reason I should be going to her funeral high. There's no reason I should be going to any funeral high. And so, but I was all consumed, you know, I couldn't stop. And so I knew I had to do something again. And I knew that treatment had worked. I knew that the 12 steps had worked. You know, and so I went back to treatment at a different place called Chemo Palms. And I got clean again. And they put me on some antidepressants to deal with the grief and stuff. Never really dealt with it though, man. I never processed it. I half-ass processed it on a step 5 with a sponsor through treatment there, but never allowed myself any time to really put some thought into it and heal and try to move through grief. I don't know. Grief is weird, you know. It comes and goes, and there's different stages of it, and so I didn't know how to handle that. I mean, I've never been good at processing emotion, right? I mean, it says my track record, right? Emotions. What do I do with emotions is I use over them, you know?
And that just covers them up. You don't process them.
No.
You don't process them.
Yeah. I prolong the inevitable, you know? And so by the time I'm 29 years old at this point, 30 years old, and I have the emotional intelligence of a 12-year-old. There has been no processing emotion for 15 years. You know, there has been no work on myself, no internal work on myself in 15 years. And so, I didn't know how to act, dude. So I get clean again. I am clean for a year. Again, you know, dive back into recovery, dive back into that connection. I will say this, during that time after she died, man, I really dove into a relationship with God and had a strong connection. I open that door again. I'm a firm believer that I have to do that on a daily basis. Otherwise, the connection diminishes, right? I have to wake up and greet God before I greet me, and so, and recovery taught me that, man. It's a daily maintenance deal. And so, I really dove into all things God whenever she died, and realized that, he was the only one to validate me, right? I was looking for outside validation from other sources, and he was the only one to relieve that for me.
Yeah, dude. The parallel to that, because so you went from having to use drugs just to stay awake, just to be present, just to not be sick. As soon as the last drug wore off, you went and did it again. To now you can't greet yourself until you greet God every morning. And I just think that is a kind of cool idea, just kind of point out, just for the viewers too. And I just want y'all to know that God is the way, the truth, and the life. And it's really powerful that you're sharing that, man, that you can't greet yourself until you greet God each and every morning, man.
Right. And I think I finally had the idea of it down. Like, there has to be less of me and more of him in order for me to live a sustainable life.
Yes.
And again, he was the only one that got me through that. And to go back to the greeting, I got to greet God before I greet myself is it brings me into the Bible verse that I brought. And, it's Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. I have to daily renew my mind. Every morning I have to renew my mind and align myself with God, align myself with his will. And, my track record says I'm going to take my will back at some point. But the cool thing about today is the time I have my will in my hands is a lot less than what it used to be. If I align in the morning and renew my mind with some prayer, with some meditation, with some worship music, chances are I'm going to have a decent day. And there's going to be less of me and more of him. And not only that, I've become a vessel for his peace and love and grace, man. I get to showcase the character of Christ in my character today. So only sometimes, only sometimes, and it's a work in progress, man. But I think that, I think it's a beautiful thing, man, because, if I can renew my mind, if my mind's renewed, my spirit can be renewed. And if my spirit's renewed, then it's healthy to spread it. And that's the will of God for me today is be a servant.
So you look back at your addiction and that dark tunnel, at the mouth of that dark tunnel is that grief and loss. Is that the last time coming after that?
Nope. There's one more time.
Okay. So you go to treatment again, second time.
Mm-hmm. I'm clean again for the year. Dive into some what's a little bit of service work. Nothing special, right? I get discouraged when I don't get any sponsees and stuff like that. Don't really have the avenue to get any sponsees either, other than go to meetings and share, right? And so none of that comes to fruition. I don't feel like I'm a servant at that point.
Where are you living at?
This is in Houston, Galveston. So I live in Galveston. Meetings are in Houston, about a 30-minute commute. So I end up meeting a girl. She's got 4 years clean. I've got 5 months, 6 months this time. We have a great relationship for the most part. I go through a health crisis, really, is what it was. There's blood in my stool to keep it professional. At first, I'm like, okay, it's just a little something, whatever. It'll pass over. I thought I had a stomach bug, whatever. Just play it off. Justify and rationalize again, right? And so it progresses. It gets worse, and I'm losing a lot of blood. And so I go to the hospital. They want to schedule a colonoscopy. So they do that, but the colonoscopy is like 3 months out. And so I wait 3 months. I'm just taking Tylenol and just like stuff to ease the pain because I'm having a lot of stomach pain at this point too. It ends up getting real bad one night and I'm doubled over in pain. I go to the ER. I go in super sick in the bathroom, really passing some blood at this point. And they're like, do you want some pain medication? Yes. Yes, I do. Knowing that that's going to be, a medically induced relapse. So I say, yeah. They end up giving me 2 blood transfusions because I had lost so much blood over that 5-month period. I'm barely alive, almost died. And so I'm getting high in the hospital, basically off the drugs they're giving me. I call a buddy in Galveston. Hey, I need some more painkillers. Bring them up here. At this point, I already crossed that line again. The only difference this time is I was actually in a considerable amount of pain. But again, that's just an excuse, I asked to talk to my gastroenterologist, and he's not available. So I get mad. I leave the hospital. I'm like, well, screw y'all. I'm out of here. Y'all know what y'all are talking about, and blah, blah, blah. Again, there's that self-will again, And so I leave the hospital. I get some street drugs. Go home. Pain gets worse. I end up taking like 10 perks all at once, one handful. And I don't remember much after that. My girlfriend ends up taking me to a different hospital. Mom flies down because girlfriend called mom and said, hey, your son's dying, basically. So I get into the other hospital. They immediately get the records from UTMB, the hospital in Galveston. They realize that I have Crohn's disease. They immediately start me on corticosteroids, which makes me feel better. Almost, not immediately, but it made me feel better pretty quickly. By this time, mom's here at the hospital with me. She's adamant that they don't give me any opiates. Long story short, basically, I'm in the hospital for about 3 weeks. I recover a little bit. I can start eating again. I start pooping regular again. Yeah.
That's a necessity right there.
For sure. Yeah. And so since mom was there, they stopped giving me opiates and they started giving me Toradol, which is basically just anti-inflammatory. So I leave the hospital. I'm clean. And whenever I get home, I'm ready to use again. So I contacted who I needed to contact and started using again. Hid it from the girlfriend. Hid it from my mom. Hid it from everybody again. Did that for probably another 2 to 3 months. Then Maddie, the girl I was talking to, she wanted to know what it was about, what I was doing. And so she started doing it with me. Don't even know the time frame on it. It was all a blur. We were getting some fentanyl that was pretty powerful. She turned blue, and I had to Narcan her a couple times and make sure that she revived. I had to call the ambulance once. I had already Narcaned her. She wouldn't wake up. The ambulance showed up, and then she woke up whenever they got there from the Narcan.
Just for anybody that doesn't know, Narcan is an opioid blocker. It'll immediately sober them up.
100%. And it's just to touch on how deep that addiction can get. I remember I've also been Narcan once. I remember waking up and being mad that the paramedics took my dope. Yeah. And
just straight out of your bloodstream.
Yep. Immediately wake up, dude. And Narcan will send you into precipitated withdrawal too. So you wake up sick. Yeah. And so I woke up sick wondering where my dope was, and the paramedics had taken it. And that was Maddie's experience as well. Once I Narcaned her, she was upset that she was feeling sick when she came to, and we let the paramedics leave. And, of course I had hidden the dope. And so she was able to get high immediately after she died, essentially.
It's like, dude, sorry we just revived you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, sorry that you're alive now.
Yeah, no appreciation whatsoever. None. It's just immediately back to addiction, immediately back to the use. And so fast forward a little bit, she ends up going to treatment. I don't. I get a Suboxone prescription through telehealth. I'm trying to transition from Suboxone, so I'm not shooting dope and not doing fentanyl. It doesn't work. I go back to the fentanyl every time. She gets out of treatment and goes her own separate way. At this time is when I moved to San Angelo.
What's in San Angelo?
My daughter. Yeah, my daughter's here. She's actually in Big Lake. And my mom happened to be moving here. So the timing was impeccable. I think was another God thing, really. She had moved to San Angelo, and just so happened she had come into some money so she could support me for a little while. And so I agreed to come here. And I told her, I said, I'm not going back to treatment again. I know what I got to do. It's just a matter of application. And so I come here, detox on my mom's couch for 30 days, dude. I was miserable for a month, man. I was sick, laid up, projectile vomit, can't eat, barely staying hydrated. And then once I got through that initial phase is really when I dove into some recovery here.
No treatment, no hospital, just
cold turkey. Had Suboxone. I took maybe during this 30-day period, I took maybe a half a strip of Suboxone. No, I'd say 1.5 strips of Suboxone. So 12 milligrams of Suboxone over a month period. And then everything else was cold turkey, man. Miserable. I was sick. And, and then I knew that I needed to get to some meetings. I knew I needed to meet some people. I had to dive in and fully immerse myself in the recovery community here. And so that's what I started doing, even in the days I didn't want to go, I just showed up, man. And it was a lot easier to hear the God voice this time. It was a lot easier to let him back in the picture. Part of the whole program of AA or NA or any 12-step program is building that connection, Steps 2 and 3 are all about that. And so, I met some people here. I got into some fellowship. I dove into some steps with a new sponsor. I've made it through the steps today fully. I'm actually doing nightly inventories with my sponsor and a couple other men in the rooms. Step 11 is prayer and meditation. I'm doing that on a daily basis. And step 12 is carry the message to other alcoholics or addicts. And I'm doing that on a daily basis.
You're doing that right now.
I'm doing, correct.
What does step 11 look like for you?
So, first off, it starts off in the morning. So,
right.
The whole renewing of the mind. Greeting God before I greet myself, that's where it starts for me. And what it's translated to throughout the day is opportunities. What I look for. I have a spiritual lens that I look through today. How can I be of service, to a customer at work? How can I, if a guy at work needs to vent, do I listen? Does he want advice? Can I give it? There's lots of little spiritual windows where I believe that I can be used today, but I have to recognize them. And I have to do that by having a renewed mind.
Step 11 is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out.
So do you feel like you're having to make time for that, or does your time just kind of like open up?
So I make time for that.
You make time. So is that like out of your sleep, out of work?
Yeah. So like I'll wake up in the morning. I don't have to be at work till 8, but I wake up about 5:30.
Okay.
Take a shower, drink my coffee, sit down, do my readings. I read the Spiritual Principle a Day out of the Narcotics Anonymous program. I read The Jesus Calling by Sarah Young, which is a beautiful devotional. I read my Bible at least, I probably read anywhere from 3 to 6 chapters out of any book every morning. And so that centers me, dude, that aligns my will with his. I firmly believe that God would want me in that word as much as possible. I strengthen my spirit enough every day to not have to flirt with that line of the breaking point. But it's really about the discipline, man. I think it's devotion is what it is. Am I fully devoted to self again, or am I fully devoted to Christ again?
All right. So now you moved to San Angelo. All right. So your daughter's here, your mom's here, and you're in recovery. Is that where you're at now? Right.
Yeah. So I'm coming up on a year. July 19th is my 1-year clean date. Not only am I closer to my daughter, but our bond has been restored. That relationship has done a complete 180. Me and my daughter's mom co-parent very well, and the communication has been restored. So I had to pass some drug tests in order to get visitations back with my daughter. I've passed three of those, 2 hair follicles and a pee test.
3 out of 3.
Yep.
Okay.
3 out of 3. Yeah. Yep. And so with each one of those past drug tests, I get more visitation back.
Awesome.
And so I've got to pass a nail bed test and I get full joint custody back, which is every other weekend, 30 days in the summer and some weeknights as well. And so that, I'm 1 test away from that, man. And so right now I get her, every, or 2 times a month and some days in the summer. And not only that, it's like, she's let me back into her life. I was very worried about, was there going to be some resentment there? Was there going to be, not hatred, but was there going to be some standoffishness there, based off of me being inconsistent, but that's been restored. I've got a great job. I'm in contact with my family members again, mom, grandparents, people that cared about me through all this. I'm able to have relationships with them today. I have dreams again, goals again, there's hope, there's faith today. I have a beautiful girlfriend today. We just had a baby, and what a blessing. It's almost like a second chance at being a dad that I didn't get to be for my daughter. I get to be part of some firsts that I missed with my daughter. I can't get that time back with my daughter, but I get some time with a son, All those are byproducts of my recovery and my relationship with God.
Yeah, those things have been granted to you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so, I remember Keenan preaching on this. What are you going to do with an answered prayer? How are you going to be a steward of an answered prayer?
That one was good.
It was very good. And those were all prayers, and now they've come true, dude. It gives me goosebumps to think about all the things that have happened in a short period of time. It's like, what's next? But there is no next if I don't wake up every morning, do the diligent things, and move closer to the things of God. That's what's got me what I've gotten so far. Why would I stop at this point? Complete 180 change in mindset, change in spirit, change in behavior. For so long, self-will, selfishness, self-centeredness. Now it's selflessness. How can I be of service? How can I get out there and really do God's work? And this is part of that. And I hope that this reaches some ears that need to hear it. There is redemption, dude. There is hope. There is restoration, and I'm, we're all living, breathing proof of that, and I want to touch on that revelation that I had this morning too, just to throw it in there. So I've had a sponsorman today too, which is part of the 12th step. I had a sponsee struggling with, being spiritually stagnant and not progressing in his spiritual walk, and still has some defects showing. And I really got to thinking about it. And, I was telling him and also to my girlfriend, had texted me this morning and said she was feeling the same way. And so I got to thinking about it. And, as drug addicts, part of the whole drug use is like, we like to feel high, right? My walk with Christ doesn't always hit those dopamine reward centers like drugs did. And so there's times during my spiritual walk where I'm expecting this great Holy Spirit feeling, this euphoric feeling, when in reality that's not the case, man. There's my walk with Christ isn't always this burning bush moment and this parting the Red Sea deal. It's a lot of it is just the ordinary, the wake up, the read, the prayer, the things that we do to strengthen that bond, right? And when I do those things, it brings me peace and happiness, which on the scientific side of that would be serotonin, right? And serotonin is the happy chemical, right? And dopamine is it's also a happy chemical, but it's more of a reward thing. If I do this, I'm going to feel this way. Yeah. Whereas serotonin is like, I should just feel this way baseline, When I'm using drugs, I build a tolerance. I have to use more and more and more to get the same effect. Well, I think the same thing could be said spiritually. You know, I do the things on a spiritual daily basis, and I almost build a tolerance to it. Things become more mundane. Things become more plain. And that's in my walk with Christ, you know. But the thing is, in drug addiction, when I build a tolerance, the thing that I did was kept using no matter what, right? I'm always going to go back to using more dope to get the dopamine feeling, to get the euphoria feeling. Well, why can't I take that same aspect and that same philosophy to my walk with Christ? No matter what, I'm going to use him again. Mm-hmm. No matter what, I'm going to get some God today. Just like I got my dope every day, I'm going to get some God today, you know? And if I build a tolerance to it, like you said earlier, I can either do more of it or just keep doing it to stay baseline. So, you know, same rule applies with drugs and God. As long as I keep doing it, I'm going to get the feeling and the end game. I'm going to get what I'm after. And that's through church, and that's through reading the Bible, and that's through renewing the mind. You know, the purpose is to really
reap the harvest. Get
out there and do some service, man. Dream today is to open a treatment center. That's what I want to do, man. And
awesome.
Yeah, God willing, I have the tools to do it. You know, got the experience and all that. I ain't got the money yet, but we'll figure that out as it comes. You know, but I was lost as a lost soul there for a while. And so now it's all about how I can help, man, and not how can I help others and not myself today. You know, I'm so tired of myself. I'm ready to help somebody else. You know,
so one last time.
Okay,
what is your state of mind now?
Man, I would say serenity, purpose, gratitude. Zeal, passion, self-discipline, self-awareness, all those things intermingled into one mold of, you know, I guess the mindset is to be as much like Jesus as I can be.
So is there anything you think of that keeps your state of mind on that?
Yeah, I think approaching each day from a spiritual standpoint instead of a worldly standpoint is what gets me through each day. You know, for example, I got people at work that ask me for advice. You know, hey, what's this Bible verse? Where can I find this? And those things keep me centered, dude. And sometimes I don't even have to do nothing. Sometimes I get approached about it. You know. And I have to remember my purpose at that point. Like, I'm here to spread the word, you know, and that's what keeps me, centered today, dude, you know, is, I'm a vessel. How can I be used today? You know, I show up for the ordinary things, and sometimes the extraordinary happens, you know. Shout out to Casey on that one. We talked about that. Love you. My girlfriend had a good conversation about that. But yeah, you know, you show up for daily life, man, and how can I be of service throughout that day?
So, last call. Is there, for those listening that are struggling, that just don't know what the first step is, or is there something that you might have missed that you want to say to those still lost?
Yeah. Don't be scared to ask for help. Don't let pride and ego get in the way of your best life. Don't let yourself get in the way of what's out here for you. For me, I didn't have a means to get to the help. I didn't know what the help was or where the help was. Give yourself a chance to do something new. You've tried all the dope. You've tried all the drugs. You've tried all the other things. Why not give recovery? Why not give God a chance to do something different? Surrender it, man. You know, give it up. Try a different way of life and practice some obedience to somebody else's will besides your own.
Yes.
Thanks, Landon. We're honored to have you on here tonight.
Thank you.
You'll pray us out?
Absolutely. I'll pray us out. All right. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together as a group of followers, God, and Thank you for the revelations and the spirit you filled this room with. Thank you for the talks. And God, I just want to ask that each one of us have the ability, the grace, and the strength to go out and do your will, do your bidding, reach the people that need to be reached, and take a worldly, earthly form of your spirit, God, and let us spread that throughout the world and be vessels of your love. And God, I just want to pray for Trent's peace and for Bailey's peace as well, and that we can all walk in your light and in your glory and be who we're meant to be through Christ. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you guys for listening to this episode of Crucifying Addiction. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, leave comments, share this with somebody. Tune in 2 weeks. We got another surprise for you.
And my freaking heart fell out of my chest, dude. I said, there is no way. And he said, yes, the only stipulation is you cannot come back to Lubbock County. Where do I sign? So...